Thank you very much. I'm much younger in that sense. I've never been his student nor his colleague. I interacted with him not very frequently but sufficiently. Initially with his work when I was kind of growing up in the field, and then also at personal level. So what I'll try to do is to somehow say something more, quote unquote, academic, in the sense that I don't have those kinds of personal experiences. I think whenever we talk about Professor Bete, and last 1 month I have attended several meetings, like the point that Virginius was just making, or earlier Professor Thapar was making, that he was a great teacher, very committed teacher, and a great scholar. Obviously, we know he wrote all his life. But there's also subtext to it, and that is that when we talk about André Béteille, we don't talk about politics. We don't talk about the kind of sociology or social sciences that is done in JNU, but Bete was in some sense a distanced scholar. I think this is not true. I think Bete was a scholar with a mission, and his mission was sociology at some level. But when I say sociology, there are also very important political subtleties to his sociology, and I've tried to kind of identify some of them. So the point that I'm trying to make is that there is kind of purposefulness in his sociology, and that purposefulness is in some sense very critical for somebody like me, the way I think of sociology, the way I practice sociology. So I think when he started his career, again, this is something mostly from his writings, but some of it is also from discussions I've had with him. He had to deal with 3 sets of scholarships that were already there. He obviously was a student of Indian society, and there were social anthropologists. His supervisor, M.N. Srinivas, had just come back from Oxford with a PhD degree in social anthropology. Then obviously there were Indianists or Indologists that Sir Thapar was talking about, and apart from that, obviously there were comrades, Marxists, and all of them had a kind of vision of sociology and a vision of method. How should you study sociology? And I think Professor Bete disagreed with all of them, and he in the process tried to produce a kind of sociology which I personally feel is the mainstream sociology. And he systematically, in some sense, argued about all these things and why he took the position that he took. I think with anthropology particularly, because that was something that he could not escape immediately, even in professional terms, he was also at some level doing a village studies. I mean, his PhD was a study of a Tanjore village. And then he wrote several pieces on sociology and anthropology. And in those pieces, he also kind of does not say that anthropology or social anthropology is as such any different from sociology, but he makes a very subtle distinction. For him, anthropology is a study of kinship-based societies, and sociology is a study of differentiated complex societies. And as a discipline, sociology had emerged in Western Europe in the post industrial French Revolution period, post-Enlightenment period, for the study of urban society. India was not an urban society. He went to study a village, but he very kind of consciously, systematically, explicitly presented his work on Tanjore village as a study of village society from a sociological perspective. If you look at the book title, he says, what is that structure of social stratification in the village? So the idea of social stratification means that it is a sociological study. It's not a study of kinship. Likewise, he also distanced himself from or critiqued the Indianists. And the Indianists, the most important Indianist at that time was obviously Louis Duhamel. And he kind of very actively disagreed with him. And he kind of makes a distinction between what he says typification of societies, which contrasts, say, for example, India with the West, and a comparative method. He was an advocate of comparative method, and he would actually told me several times, 2-3 times, he told me that Surinder, unless Indian sociologists start studying other societies, they will not be able to make sense of their own society. Otherwise, we kind of keep thinking about us as an exceptional place. So he kind of clearly moved away from that kind of Indological position which saw India as an exceptional place. And the third obviously was the class analysis, which obviously was very critical for him. His the kind of PhD dissertation carried the term along with caste, class and power. So this was obviously taken from Max Weber. and Weber was perhaps very important for him, but at the same time, he obviously took Marx very seriously. It's not like he rejected Marx altogether, but he was very uncomfortable with the Marxists, who were his colleagues, who were his friends with whom he had to engage with, and he thought that they were at some level ideologues. They were not really social scientists. They were treating Marx as religion. So I think he makes a distinction between Marxiologists and Marxists. So he was very comfortable with being a Marxiologist, but Marxist, he thought they were kind of believers, and as believers you can't do social science. So I think it is with this context that his study of caste becomes very significant. I mean, all of us who even continue to study caste, we all see caste as an exceptional process or exceptional reality because it is there in India. It's been there since ancient time. It is there today. It will stay tomorrow in some form or the other. There's a kind of eternalism attached to caste. And I think because Professor Bete looked at caste as one of the structures of inequality, a kind of status system, as Weber had said, he was always looking for how caste was changing. In his PhD dissertation also, he talked about there were spaces that were caste-free in the village, and he talked about them. And he said that caste also intersects with class, and caste was dimension of power, as Weber had talked about. And that's why when he talked about caste later on, he's talking about hierarchy, he's talking about inequality, he's talking about caste as caste, but he's also open to looking at caste sociologically. And when we are talking about sociologically, it is also historically, in the sense that during his period of scholarship, when he started his PhD in Tanjore village to the city of Delhi, or to otherwise when he's talking about caste, he's willing to kind of look at it. And he's also able to connect his scholarship on caste with what is happening to policy. And I think this is the last point that I would like to make, that we think of Professor Bete as a very distant scholar. He was chairperson of Indian Council of Social Science Research, and he completed his term for 3 years. He was also appointed on the Knowledge Commission. So he had very strong opinions, and these opinions were political opinions. And he wanted India to become a good society. And in order to make India a good society, he thought sociology had a role to play, and that role was a critical sociology, a critical scholarship, a critical political intervention, not just kind of doing academics in the classroom and only sitting in Delhi School of Economics and debating with economists. He was willing to engage with the larger society, and I think that politics is also present the way he wrote, the fact that he was one of the first one among academics who was willing to write in newspapers, and he wrote in very accessible language. He was communicating with larger public, and that also was politics. So he was not aware of the larger political process, which obviously also shaped society. And he had very strong opinions on many things, and he would argue about them very passionately. So I think he's made a great contribution, and we need to engage with his work and pick up these nuances. I'm working on it. Hopefully I'll put together something. Thank you very much, Dipankar, for organizing.